In this lesson, we're going to talk about parallel and perpendicular lines, and we're going to talk about them from an algebra perspective. Our essential question is, how do I write equations describing parallel and perpendicular lines? All right, so a couple of vocabulary words, and we have talked about these words before, but now we're looking at them from that algebraic perspective, having smartboard trouble already this morning. Okay, parallel lines. Right? Parallel lines have the same slope. So for example, y equals 3/4 x minus 2 and y equals 3/4 x plus 5. Both of these equations have a slope of 3/4. We just have different y-intercepts. We have oblique lines. Okay, oblique lines do not meet at a 90-degree angle. They do intersect. They just don't intersect at 90 degrees. So for example, y equals 3/4 x minus 2 and y equals -1/2 x plus 1. These two lines will intersect, but not at a 90-degree angles. Coinciding lines. Coinciding lines, so two lines, I'm going to say, that have the same graph. All right, so, let's do one in standard form. X plus y equals 6. 2x plus 2y equals 12. If I write these in slope-intercept form, y equals -x plus 6, y equals -x plus 6, I have the exact same graph, right? But I have named the line differently. In the case of the second standard form equation, I multiply by 2. And our friends, perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So y equals 3/4 x minus 2 and y equals -4/3 x plus 6. Okay, 3/4 and -4/3 are opposite reciprocals. So an opposite reciprocal right? A fraction that is flipped and the sign is opposite. So the opposite reciprocal of 3/4 is -4/3. The opposite reciprocal of -7/8 would be +8/7. The opposite reciprocal of 2 is 1/2. And interestingly, the opposite reciprocal of 0 is undefined. All right, we have a couple of vocabulary words here that you need to do. And let me get my highlighter. Opposite reciprocal, perpendicular lines, coinciding lines. Let's move this up. Parallel lines and oblique lines. Now, personally, I would dig out the note cards I already have for parallel and perpendicular, and I would add the algebra to those note cards. And then I would only have to create new note cards for oblique, coinciding, and opposite reciprocal. So let's try a couple of these. We're going to use slope to determine if these two lines, AB and line CD, are parallel, perpendicular, oblique, or coinciding. All right. Slope of AB and slope of CD. It's really important that you label which line you're talking about. It's important for us to be able to understand in your work what line you're finding the slope for. Let's pause for just a second and write down that slope formula. All right. Now I like to write my ordered pairs on top of each other and circle the y values in order to substitute in correctly. So this will be 6 minus 3 and 2 minus negative 2. That's 3/4. I'm going to write my ordered pairs on top of each other and circle the y. 3 minus 0, 3 minus negative 1, 3/4. My slope for each of these is 3/4. They are the same, so these lines are parallel. All right, let's try another one. Sorry, I have to come over to the computer to move the board because the computer's not cooperating this morning. Now, slope of AB, slope of CD. I know some of you prefer to label x1, y1, x2, y2. That's fine. However, you keep your ordered pairs straight so that you substitute correctly into the slope formula is fine, but you need to make sure you're substituting correctly. Okay, I want you to pause the video and try numbers 2 and 3, please. Won't even let me pause the video this morning. All right, let's look at number 2 here. For the slope of AB, I got a positive 2/5, and for the slope of CD, I got a negative 5/2. Those are opposite reciprocals, so my lines are perpendicular. For number 3, both slopes came out to a positive 2, meaning my lines were parallel. All right, one more. Pause your video, please. Okay, this one was fun. My slope for AB came out to be negative 2/3, and my slope for CD was 1/4. So these lines are not parallel or perpendicular. They are oblique. All right, I'd like you to take a moment, please, and write your summary. Make sure you include information about oblique and coinciding lines. Vocabulary you've not seen very much of in the past, but you definitely need to know for this unit.